So hey there, I'm gonna do a little bonus dot mandala video. This is for Star. So this is the ornament, and I'm just gonna walk you through it using the green tool. I can't remember if you have the green tool or the yellow and white, but it doesn't really matter. This is 8 points. Between the other two, you have 8 points. The smallest one is number 1. They're numbered nicely on here. They're hard to read a little bit on the other tools, but you should be able to read them. So we're going to start, because I'm working on a white tile instead of the black ornament, I'm going to substitute a green color for the white so you can see it. So we're going to start with the largest one, which is the number 8 tip and the green, and we're going to just start right in the middle. Now, I want this big middle to be big, so I'm actually going to double dot on it, so that and I'm going to tap it down so it gets nice and large. Okay, the one on the sample that you have is super, super large. So I just keep tapping and tapping until it spreads out a little bit, okay? There we go. That's the look I wanted. And I'm just going to leave that alone for a minute and let that dry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take tip number 3, also with the green, and I'm going to put a dot on each of these dots that I have marked. Basically, the way I look at it, it's you're doing 6. So even if yours isn't fully marked like this, you can put, I usually would do like the 2 that are across from each other, and then equidistant the one in between. I'll notice when I did the sample ornament, I will tell you that I did not have these nice lines on it and everything. So that's kind of a newly added special thing. And then what I'm going to do, so I use tip 3 for that. I'm going to take now tip 2, and I'm just going to put a dot in between each one. So it's just slightly smaller. Now on the sample, I had actually a smaller dot in between each of those, but I don't really feel like I have enough room here, so I'm actually not going to do that. All right, so now I'm going to I'm still sticking with the white, or slash green. And so on each of these largest ones, I'm going to still use the number 2, and I'm going to put another dot right up there, okay, right above it, kind of pointing outwards. All right. The only thing about the dots that you ever want to remember is you don't want to put them too close to the dot before, because you don't want them to run together. And then once you've done that, I'm going to go down to dot size number 1, and I'm going to put another dot above that. So it's 3, 2, 1 in order coming out here. Okay. And then above that, I'm going to jump up to dot size number 4, and I'm going to put a 4 size dot above that. So a nice big dot right at the end of it. So if you're using the white tool, all of the tips that I've just described are all on the white tool. So you don't have to, the first center dot, of course, was from the yellow tool because it's the largest one. But all of these other ones are from the white tool. All right, now what we're going to do is above the dots in between, we're going to also put this number 4 dot right above that dot. Oops. That one I didn't have enough paint on, so I'm going to redot that one. Okay, so right above there. And now what we're going to do is using the number 1, the smallest tip, is that we're going to dot, dot, dot from the high dot to that low dot. So I'm just going to do a dot, dot, dot. All right. And then I'm going to do the same thing in this direction. So from the high dot, 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 dot to the lower dot. All right, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 3. Okay. One, 2, 3. Oops. Those went together. Remember, the rule is if you make a mistake, do not try to clean it up now. It's much easier to do that at the end. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go up to the number 5 dot, which if you're using the yellow tool, it's the smallest tip on the yellow tool, so the 1 yellow, or yellow 1. We're going to put a dot right above the lower dot. Give yourself room so that if it spreads out, it's not a big deal. I don't know why I thought this needed black. Of course it didn't need black because the ornament was black. This is really much more of a one color piece. So we're going to put that one up there, and then we're going to go back to the largest one, which is the number 8 on the green tool and the number 4 on the yellow tool. And we're going to leave ourselves some space and put a nice big dot above the one we just put on. Want to leave a lot of space because we're going to actually be doing some stuff around this dot. All right. And then while we're waiting for that to dry, what we're going to do is we're just going to use the number 2 tip, which is back on the yellow one, on the white tool, number 2, and we're going to just put a couple of dots. No, never mind, I'm changing my mind. I want to use number 3. That's too small. I want to just go dot, dot, dot. On the sample, I only did 2 because on the ornaments, you may not be able to fit 3 dots. On this tile, I can, so I'm doing 3. There is nothing magical about what's the right number of dots. It really is what looks good and what feels good. So, like I said, on the ornament, there's only room, I think, for 2. But on here, I have room for 3. Okay? So the last big thing we're going to do here with the green / white is we're going to go around the one that we just did. We're going to take the number 4 tip, and we're going to put a dot above it and then on each side of it. You'll have to redip for that to make sure they come out nice and big. All right, so above each one, we're going to put a dot up here and a dot on each side. A dot above and a dot on each side. Above and each side. And above and each side. Okay, and then what we're going to do is jump down to the number 2, and we're going to connect those. Let's use number 1 so we can make more dots. So on the number 1, we're just going to put a little, because I want to have 2 dots in between, that's why. So we're going to use the tiniest tip, which will be on the white tool if you're using that tool. And just put 2 dots in between. All right, take your time if you need to, so you make sure they don't all touch and run into each other. 1, 2, 1, 2. And they're making like a diamond shape. All right, 1, 2. All right, so rather than do them all, I'm just going to stick with those so I can show you how this ends. So now we're going to do double dotting. So you can double dot while the paint is still wet, or you can wait for it to dry. So I'm going to use the black to, actually I'll use the blue because then it'll match the sample that you're familiar with, if you've seen that. So I have this big dot here, and I'm going to use, I always like to start small. You can always add more. You can add less. So I'm going to use the number 6 tip, all right, which is, and we're going to just add some blue in the middle of that. And if the dots are still wet, then you can really just barely touch it and let it just kind of spread out, all right? So that actually is exactly what I wanted on that one. And then I'm going to continue to do that on the inside of these. I'm going to do it, but instead of using the number 6, I'm going to jump down to the number 4. So I'm going to put a dot in the middle of each of these inside the diamonds. Okay. And then I'm going to jump down to the number 3 tip, and I'm going to put a dot in each of these. Alrighty. Now the other thing that I did differently, the only other thing that I did differently on the snowflake on the ornament was I had a bigger starting dot here, and I put dots around there. And this one, I think what I would do instead is use the number 1 tip, and you can use the white is probably what I would use to keep the theme, the same theme going. And in between, almost like a triangle here, I'm going to do a small dot right in here. So here, 3, 4, 5. Oops. Always, if I'm left-handed, so I always work from the left. I'm working on a turntable. It's a huge advantage. But if you don't, just pick up your item and turn it around so you're always going from your side of strength. And that's basically the entire design. You can, oh, actually, I also did, now I remember, I also double dotted up on these as well. So that's also something you can, which would look kind of cool. So you can add to this, you can look at it and see if you think it needs more, something else that you can add into it, but that's basically the design. Enjoy.